Outside of this one church town, there's a gold dirt road to a whole lot of nothing. Got a deed to the land, but it ain't my ground. This is God's country. We pray for rain and thank Him when it's falling, 'cause it brings a grain and a little bit of money. We put it back in the plate, I guess that's why they call it God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. We turn the dirt and work until the week's done. We take a break and break bread on Sunday, then do it all again, 'cause we're proud to be from God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. God's country. I don't care what my headstone reads or what kind of pine wood box I end up in. When it's my time, lay me 6 feet deep in God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. Yeah, I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country.
Hey guys, if that song doesn't fire you up, man, you're not breathing. You know what I mean? You don't have a pulse. If that song doesn't fire you up, man, you don't have a pulse. What do you guys think, Alex? Because you came on today, we were looking for the right song. I called Benny, and Benny immediately, thank you, Benny, for putting this beautiful song on for us. That's going to be our new intro, one of the many intro songs. What do you think, Alex?
Absolutely perfect. The first time I've seen it, and I was watching it, and I thought the same thing. That is a perfect song, especially for today's podcast.
Exactly. What do you think, Doug and Bobby? Hey, man, did that fire you guys up? Dude, my heart right now is going 100 miles. I could do 400 pounds right now on the bench press. I mean, literally, man, this just fires you up. God's country, you know? Wow. Hey, guys, before we get started, let's give everybody a welcome. Once again, Ceci, al cañón, al pie del cañón, a huevo. Ceci, bienvenida, our sister all the way from Riverside, always by our side. And the other one that's always by our side, Chris Kilby, San Diego PD, gang detective, robbery detective, legend, 1097, let's go. And prayers for today, reaching souls. Amen, brother. Episode, Jesus Christ loves you. He loves all of us. Thank you for reminding us once again. VP 760, once again, good evening, gentlemen. Ready, standing by for another great episode, which it will be. Two of my brothers in blue, love you guys. Benny, thank you for making that video for us. Mil gracias, hermano. ¿Sabes qué? That is fire. That fires us up without a doubt. And Jim, all the way, hey, Batman, all the way from Thailand, brother, thank you for always being there for us. I know that it's, what time is it? 8 o'clock over here. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, no, I think it's like 5 in the morning with you. And you're always with us every Tuesday and Wednesday. Thank you, brother. And Benny's congratulating everybody. Cocaine Cowboys watching us all the way from the Philippines. Alex, he was a CBP officer, worked a lot of undercover, also wrote a book, Cocaine Cowboys Uncensored. This guy's another legend, bro. And he's watching us right now, 8 o'clock in the morning in the Philippines. Y aquí, una vez más, la Ceci al pie del cañón. And we have another brother, man, that's always by our side, all the way from Arizona, Jerónimo de los Cielos. He's one of your neighbors, Bobby. And ¿sabes qué? Jerónimo is always, Northern Arizona is in the Hacienda, Tata's at home, and the babies are safe inside and warm. Gracias al Señor. Gracias. And then another one of our brothers, man, mil gracias, Big VJ Juarez, watching us from Long Beach. Dude, you're always there from the very beginning, man. And gracias. And welcome, Alex, from Chris Hastings, Cocaine Cowboys. Guys, with that said, I'm excited. We have so many great things to talk about. But before we do, let's talk about what we're drinking, what we're celebrating. And we'll start off with you, Big Doug. Tell us.
So today I'm doing something a little different. It's a craft distillery here in Knoxville. It's not far from our house. So they make whiskey, vodka, and gin. It's called Postmodern. I know it's backwards, but it's 100% malted barley whiskey. And it's done in like cherry wood, and then it's stored in brand new oak barrels. So I haven't tried it yet. So here we go.
Well, here we go. And tell us, what does it taste like? Does it have an earthly taste, a grass taste? Describe it.
Yeah, it's a little on the sweet side. It's hard to. I'm gonna have to give you an update towards the end.
Okay, we'll remind you. Yes,
it's got a little bit of a fire bite at the very end, at the back of your tongue, but it's a little on the sweet side. But I can't quite place it. But I'll let you know by the end of the show tonight.
Okay, most definitely. Yeah, hopefully you'll finish that bottle by the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And with that said, I don't know if you fell off the wagon yet, Bobby. If you're still drinking coffee. But if you are, tell us what kind of coffee and what are you smoking today? Or are you drinking tequila or some scotch or whiskey today?
I'm dropping weight, so I'm not drinking right now. So I'm going to do about 30, 45 days maybe. And I'm drinking coffee, black coffee, from my old cup from Iraq, Iraqi Freedom Cup.
Oh, there you go.
Over there.
Awesome.
And bought it in Mosul. And then I'm smoking because I'm not eating a whole lot today. I'm smoking the New World Order from AJ Fernandez.
I love that cigar. Great cigar. Great draw.
And it's a very it's more of a medium compared to what I smoke.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get lightheaded and feel like I'm intoxicated from the damn strong ass cigars I normally smoke.
Right.
So that's what I'm smoking.
You know what, Bobby? That's one of my favorite cigars because you know what? The draw that it has. And also what I like about AJ Fernandez, that one New World Order, it doesn't give you that cigar taste afterwards. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have that strong cigar, you feel this one right here, the draw, for whatever reason, AJ Fernandez does great draws on his cigars.
Everything he makes.
And guys, look at, oh yeah, without a doubt. And guys, I'm drinking the Delmore Sherry Cask Select. I'm almost finished with the bottle. The Delmore Scotch, 12 years. I'm telling you, it is one of the best scotches in the market. Highly recommended. And like I said before, you know what? It's not peaty at all. It's just delicious. Just delicious.
There you go.
And with that said, Alex, tell us what you're drinking.
So what I'm drinking.
Tell us the history of the bottle.
So I'm a tequila guy. I like silver tequilas, and a good friend, one of my brothers, gave me this tequila. It's called Emerald Spear, created by 4 Navy SEALs. All right. The proceeds go to a Navy SEAL Foundation, Navy SEAL families, and the SEALs themselves. I've never tried it, so you're going to get a genuine reaction from me here as I open this thing up. Oh, great. And now I'm on video, and it's totally shut tight. I'm going to need a knife to get this sucker open.
Okay. We got Darren DeChari. Can't wait, Alex. Is he one of your camaradas, Alex?
That's one of my buddies. That's Darren.
Okay, he's watching it. And while you're cutting that open, we got Roger Demchuk, San Diego Sheriff, gang detective legend, man, with us. Ahí vamos.
All right, let's see. First of many. Oh, that's nice. Emerald spear, well done. Emerald for the Island Coronado and spear for the Trident Titans of the Navy SEALs. So thank you guys. This is fantastic.
Nice.
And I got a Cohiba that my father-in-law gave me, but my wife won't let me smoke in the house, so I'll smoke it after. I'll do one of these for time.
I call myself a mandilon because my wife doesn't let me, but you know what? My hero is Bobby. I live vicariously through him. So, we also have your primo. I love you, primo. Sarah Claudia Vasquez is watching us, brother.
Yep. Love you back. Love all my cousins.
Yeah. All right, Bobby. You know what? Give us the introduction. We can't wait. And let's get started, brother.
All right. Anyway, to all our viewers, thanks for joining us again. All our regulars seem to be here again. And I want to start out, I want to introduce our guest. Alex Pacheco is a retired U.S. Customs and Border Protection Special Agent with 24 years of U.S. federal law enforcement experience. Alex previously served as a supervisor with U.S. Border Patrol, as U.S. Border Patrol agent, Taskforce Commander, International Liaison, CB International Officer, and CB Country Manager for Guatemala and Belize. He is a member of the California Narcotics Officers Team of the Year and recipient of the San Diego Sheriff's Meritorious Unit Citation. He is an experienced international advisor, certified World Customs Organization Instructor, and has provided capacity building in the U.S., Mexico, Central America, and Ghana. He has worked in a high-risk environment of Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, Guatemala City, Guatemala, and the Darien Province in Panama. Alex is a published author, an experienced public speaker, subject matter expert in cross-border investigations and cartels operating in Baja California region of Mexico. Welcome, Alex. Bienvenido. Excited to have you on, and I give you the floor. Give us, or I think it goes over to you, David.
You know what, Alex? If you don't mind telling us, tell us about yourself. Tell us, where did you grow up at? Tell us, how did you get into law enforcement? Give us a brief synopsis of your life story before we get into the cases.
Okay, of course. And before, thanks for the great introduction, guys. I had a lot of different titles and assignments over the years. Ultimately, deep down inside, I am just a Border Patrol agent who just really happened to be good at networking, human intelligence, and international investigations. My buddies will joke that I'm just a knuckle dragging mouth breather, which I am, but I can be kind of cerebral sometimes. And I think a lot of that comes from my upbringing. Grew up working class, and I had a fantastic childhood growing up in La Puente, California, which is east of Los Angeles in the San Gabriel Valley. If you know the area, the area I grew up in specifically was Bassett. Grew up with my brother and my siblings, my brother and both my parents, my father, who to this day, although he passed, rest in peace, over a decade ago, I idolized as a hero from the time I was born until the day we laid him in the ground. He laid the groundwork for everything I needed to be as a man. Both my parents, my family, they migrated from Mexico, stayed married their entire lives, and they were present in my life up until the moment they passed, which was an absolute blessing for me, for their grandkids, for all of our family members. I also had a wonderful extended family of grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins who who loved and supported me in all aspects of what I did, not just law enforcement. But you know what? Deep down inside, I knew from the get-go I always wanted to be a gunslinger. You know, and I lived out my childhood dream of becoming a cop. You know, nobody grows up playing, you know, litigation lawyer or, you know, I'm going to be an accountant. And no offense to accountants and no offense to litigation attorneys. They make a hell of a lot more money than we did, right, guys? But, you know, we play cops and robbers, firemen, ninjas, soldiers, whatever the case may be, right? And, you know, I was blessed. I got to live out my childhood dream. And growing up in La Puente, a lot of gang members where I grew up, a lot of gang members, and I knew a lot of them. The park, San Angelo Park, right behind my house was like gang infested. I remember when we were kids, getting a few fights with the local, you know, young and up and coming gangsters and whatnot. But I remember, you know, as a kid, his name was Johnny. We used to play together all the time, kind of a little chonchito kid, nice kid. And I remember him and I got in a fight one time over something stupid. He must have been like 10 or 11 years old, right? And I kicked him in the stomach, knocked him down. He started crying like little kids do. And the next day, his brother or older cousin comes up and he hits me up like, "Hey, you the guy that got in a fight with so-and-so?" And I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking, oh, he's going to beat the crap out of me, right? And he was that old school cholo with the low shorts, the high socks, the hat flipped up. And that was the type of neighborhood I grew up in, you know? And unfortunately, Johnny, I want to say he was about 13 years old, maybe a little bit older, killed in a drive-by shooting, you know, right at the park, right at the corner of the park where we grew up with, where I grew up at. Another kid down the street, we used to play with as kids. In fact, we didn't have the same exact birthday, but we were like a day or two apart. Guy's doing life in prison. He's been in and out of the penal system since we were teenagers. And I saw him when he was out on parole, maybe like 15 years ago. Give me a hug. Hey, what's up? And that was it. We kind of went our separate ways. I was blessed that my parents were very involved in my life. My brother, you know, they put us in martial arts when we were little, helped keep me off the streets and away from bad influences, right? So martial arts as a kid, especially Muay Thai as I got older, became a really big part of my life. Once I went to high school, I went to Bishop Almont High School, played football there, and I got a whole new set of mentors when I went there in the form of football coaches. And I had a lot of coaches that were LAPD, Los Angeles County Sheriffs, great guys, great coaches, and they kind of steered me in that direction. A couple in particular, Rich and Tom, you guys know what I'm talking about. They said, "Hey, Pacheco, come on a ride along. We're taking you out." They worked Century Station in Linwood. And I was sold. I went 17, 18 years old, and I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. It was fantastic, adrenaline dumping, you know, cops and robbers, the unknown. And it was the most incredible thing I'd ever experienced in my life. Nobody in my family worked law enforcement, not a single person. Business people, well-educated, hardworking, but nobody was in civil service like I did. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just my personal desire or the positive mentors I had throughout high school, but something triggered that, and I'm glad I did. You know, I got blessed to work in as you know, you guys discussed, all over Panama and Guatemala, Mexico, and of course all up and down the southwest border. And man, that was quite a blessing, So that's kind of where I got started.
Hey, Alex, let me ask you a question. Why didn't you go LAPD, since that was your first ride along? How were you introduced to Border Patrol instead of LAPD? What happened?
You know, I was actually trying, but this was post Rodney King days. Hiring was very slow at the time in Los Angeles. It was very difficult to get a job. There was a lot of cuts, and I wasn't pushing that hard. I knew what I wanted to do, but I was kind of lost, man. I was working as a bouncer. I was working, you know, I bartended. I actually opened up a restaurant with some partners as a very young man. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And believe it or not, some friends of mine, they asked me to go take the special criminal investigator job for U.S. Customs. So I went and took the written exam. This was like 97 or so. And while I'm there, I see an announcement for Border Patrol. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna put in for the Border Patrol. that process, start to finish, was done like in 4 months. It was so unbelievably fast. In fact, when I was getting ready to graduate the Border Patrol Academy, U.S. Customs calls me back and they, hey, would you like a position with U.S. Customs as special agent? And I'm like, I've been at the academy for, 5.5 months away from my family. Again. I go, no, I'm not going to go back. Although I went to another one much later in life. How
old were you? How old were you at the time when you went through the academy with Border Patrol?
The first academy, I was 24 years old, 24 and change. I turned 25 at the academy.
Wow.
Turned 25 at the academy. Out of high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was a pretty good, high school football player. I went JUCO route. I was doing really well, got hurt. I said, man, what am I going to do? I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Then I started fighting. I got into Muay Thai, really heavily into it. I fought a lot. I loved it. But man, then I looked at a lot of the fighters I knew, and God bless them. But it's a route that I didn't have to go, for lack of a better word, and I just didn't have the discipline for it either. These guys are disciplined. When it comes to these fighters, as David knows with the boxers, talent's part of it. But part of it is that discipline. Are you willing to sacrifice to get prepped for all that? So I really didn't know what to do, and the Border Patrol was a blessing. It got me out of Los Angeles. Moved me to San Diego, and honestly, best thing. Christopher Kelly, neither. I went to Charleston, South Carolina, for the Border Patrol Academy is where I went. I went to FLETC for the first time when I left the patrol and became an 1811. That's when I went to FLETC. I was 47, 46, something like that, when I went through my last academy. And believe it or not, I wasn't the old man in the academy. There was somebody older. Yeah, but I was older than my instructors, and people were calling me sir. It was pretty funny. But
hey, Alex, so when you graduated from the academy, they sent you to San Diego, and that's what you did all your time in San Diego?
Yeah, I got to San Diego, and you can stay with the Border Patrol. You can stay in your region the whole time. So I was in San Diego the entire time. But, my Border Patrol career was pretty unique. I only worked uniform, of the 20 years I was there, maybe like 3 years. 3 years of wearing a uniform. And it was initially when I first entered as a trainee. I taught post academy a little bit, English, Spanish classes for the non-native speakers, and law, which I really liked. And then I got detailed a lot to Arizona, Tucson, Ajo, Casa Grande. I worked a lot in El Centro, in Calexico, and it was fun. I really think I almost became a, for lack of a better word, a Border Patrol agent, a tracker, a green shirt, what people typically believe the Border Patrol does in Arizona and in El Centro, just because it was so busy, man. There was so much dope out there, especially Tucson. I mean, I like Tucson work so much that I told my wife, fly out here. I like Tucson. It's a lot more affordable than San Diego. And the work was nuts. It was nuts. 2, 3, 5, 600 pounds of weed a night, car chases, groups of 80, 100 people running everywhere. It was the wild, wild west. Everybody's hardworking. So
what year were you out there in Tucson?
Yeah.
I went out there twice. Let me see. It was just TDY, months at a time. I think I did 90 days out there. 2005-ish. Yeah, around 2005, I was out there. And my old training officer, Starfish, saying hi to you. He was the second liner there, and he knew I was a worker. So he put us in some areas that they normally don't put the detailers. And man, we had an absolute blast. Place called Tres Bellotas, TB Ranch, right on the border. And it was right on that no man's land between Nogales' area of responsibility and Tucson's. So it's kind of like that, when everybody has their area of responsibility, those are those thin lines. And man, you want to talk about dope. I never caught so much marijuana. In 90 days, I caught more marijuana than I did in years in the San Diego sector. Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, in the tail end of my career, I was in a wiretap unit with Phoenix PD. We were doing the Mexican drug gangs. Mm-hmm. And on a lot of our investigations, we'd hear the call where they're going to go pick up a load. So we had surveillance, would follow them in the middle of the night using the C-17 from the National Guard that had the FLIR, and they had the spotter with the camera right between his legs, and they would watch. They could see Border Patrol out there.
Yep.
They could see where they had spotters, and when Border Patrol would go by, it was obviously they were getting a radio call.
Yeah.
They'd come across with backpacks and throw it. The trucks would pick it up, and they would have a chase car in case they saw DPS and Border Patrol to take off and get pulled over for a traffic violation and let the dope continue coming through.
Yeah.
We were getting marijuana and cocaine in those backpacks. It was crazy.
I never caught cocaine, but man, there was a lot of marijuana out there. You got sick of it. It just became like, it became like almost mundane. There was so much of it.
It's such a small world. My partner from Afghanistan, and I won't say his name, but he was a Borstar guy from Border Patrol out at the Tucson sector for many years. And I think he left just before you went out there in 2005, but probably a couple of years before that. But he said, he goes, it was so busy out there. He goes, we were just humping it all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, what is Borstar? What does that stand for?
Borstar is the Border Patrol Search, Trauma, and Rescue. Borstar Brothers, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but they're like our search and rescue guys, and they're fantastic. They're tactically trained, phenomenal shape, very challenging academy, and they go out there and they're rescuing migrants, helping people that are injured throughout, along the southwest border. They do a fantastic job. Also, obviously helping injured agents, because we get injured in the field all the time because the terrain, whether it be the desert or here in San Diego, Otay Mountain, I mean, it's extreme terrain. It's not what you traditionally think like a border fence and you just hop it and it's flat. No, this is mountainous terrain, extreme cold, extreme heat, very dangerous, very isolated, where your partner is, could be hour, 2 hour away sometimes. And you're by yourself in a canyon with a group of 30, 40 people. So Borstar, do a fantastic job.
Hey, Alex, right now we're going to get into your cases. I can't wait to get into your cases. But before we do, share with us your career, your trajectory. I mean, you get hired. You're in San Diego, and when I met you, you were the commander of a special group that we would basically call when we needed somebody to arrested, somebody detained, or somebody to help us with surveillance. But before we work together, tell us your career path.
Okay, so I really didn't know which path I was going to go. I got in, and like I said, I was working up and down the southwest border. I got assigned to Post Academy, and I saw some of the intel guys there, and I kind of like what they were doing. They're plain clothes. They got the goatees. And, hey, what do you guys do? So they started explaining to me what they do. Some of the ASU guys, the anti-smuggling unit guys. And they explained to me what they did, and I was fortunate right around 2004 to get assigned to something called the Command Control Intelligence Coordination Center. One of these acronyms we give. We used to call it CSIC, right? And that's where I started. That's where I really started. I know we're going to get into the 187 guys we got from Mexico, but that's where I got my start. There were guys who were already doing it. That kind of showed me the ropes, and I was able to take that, on a different trajectory. Well, then from there, I get moved over to something called the Smuggling Interdiction Group. My Border Patrol mentor, rest in peace, Donald McDermott. Don McDermott, this old New York cop, talked like this, and he smoked, and he was one of the most brilliant men I've ever met, tactically unbelievable, and he looked out for his guys like no leader I've ever had in my entire existence. And he goes, hey, Pacheco, I need the best guys. I'm starting this new unit. It's called SIG, the Smuggling Interdiction Group. And there were 5 squads on it. I was assigned to the Intel squad. I'm working there about a year. I get promoted. Don tells me, hey, promote. I get promoted to San Clemente. I do about a year there. I'm still doing Intel operations. And then Don calls me up and he goes, hey, there's an opening as a supervisor. I want you to take over the Crib squad. And the Crib squad, at least in my opinion, the other squads will probably differ, but the Crib squad was like the flagship unit of the SIG unit. That was our squad, criminal alien squad. And we would go after previously deported aggravated felons throughout San Diego. And I was able to bring a slightly different element to that. These guys were already doing that, but we started bringing in the murderers, doing these binational investigations, the cartels. I had the Mexican connections, and it kind of went from there. That's right up when I met you, David.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to stop there, or you kind of want me to keep going, because obviously there was time after that,
Yes. And you know what, Alex? We want to bring you back, hopefully in March sometime, to talk about the big cases that you worked.
Okay.
Today, we're going to dedicate, we're always hearing about us going into Mexico. I remember when I was working our intel unit, we brought 17 homicide suspects in a 5-year span. Homicide suspect. We're always talking about us in Mexico grabbing U.S. citizens that committed murders or rapes or whatever, and they flee to Mexico. But you did something very unique and very different, and that's what the show's about today. You got the guys that were wanted in Mexico for murder, and you got them here in Ohio, all over the United States, San Diego, all over the United States,
all over.
And I believe you told me you brought 14 suspects.
You know what? I honestly lost count. It was in the teens. I can't remember if it was 13, 14, 15. At the time that I was doing it, I'm not documenting these things. You don't think it's going to be something you're going to talk about days later. I can't remember the names of half of them.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of them really stand out, and I'll never forget their faces and their names and what the things they tell you. But some, it sounds kind of weird, but you did them so much, you're like, oh, here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. The ones that we put hands on, those you remember, the ones that we coordinated through intelligence, like the guys in Ohio and the guy in New York and, Northern Cal, that's a little different. But the interesting thing on those, so in 04-ish, I get to the intel unit, and there's Fernando, Jeff, and a guy named Richard. I'm not going to mention their last names. I think 2 of them are still working. Great guys. And they were doing this a little bit. Hey, what are you guys doing? And they're telling me, they're kind of a secret squirrelish, but I kind of broke the ice, which I was good at. And they explained to me what they did. And I said, I'm going to start doing this. And honestly, all it was is you Google los más buscados de each state, the most wanted in California, most wanted in Michoacan, most wanted in Sinaloa. You go to the state websites, the federal websites, PGR, and it's like pulling up the FBI's most wanted list. And a lot of people think, well, these guys are all in Interpol. Bullshit. None of them are Interpol. Not a single person that I arrested in the teens of, and we're talking about these guys wanted for murder in Mexico, were Interpol. They didn't have red notices. Nobody was looking for them. Even some of the marshals that we worked with, great guys, they helped coordinate turnover. They'd be like, I didn't know about this guy. And it's because Mexico doesn't have a good system for that information sharing, and I was able to build a very good personal relationship. There is no NCIC in Mexico on the level of what we have. There's Plataforma Mexico, there's other options, but like we're lucky. The FBI database, the entire world wants access to that thing. All the agencies, it's unbelievable, right? NCIC, you could find a lot of different stuff in there. Mexico doesn't have that. They have an internal stuff. Maybe some guy has something on a piece of paper in his desk, right? Yeah, I got this guy. So anyway, I'm working this case.
So Alex, once again, you took it upon yourself to look at basically people that were wanted in Mexico. Now, before we get into the case right now, one of the great cases that you worked, let me ask you a quick question. Does Mexico, we have the U.S. Marshals that work in Mexico, and that's their job to track American fugitives. Does Mexico have a team that is assigned to the United States or other nations to track their fugitives?
Sort of. And I don't know if that team still exists. At the time, it was PGR, the Mexican Attorney General's office. They had a deputy legal attaché in Mexico City. It was Mario Palmerin, who passed, and Miguel Mendez at the time, and I've gone through several, and they're the ones that got me in the door. They called me the first time, gave me the name of this guy named Ornelas, who had also been being worked by the FBI Border Liaison at the time, and they give me the guy's name. So I run him, boom. I do a little VRT, vehicle registered to 2829 of the guy, and he's got a license or a vehicle registered under his name. I can't remember if it was Oceanside or Vista, somewhere in North County. You know what? I don't ask anybody, I just get in my car one night. I'm working a swing shift. I drive up there. I do my deconfliction. I run them in text, call LECC, run him. I nin him. Well, it was nin back in the day. Right now,
Right.
Yes.
LECC, right, or whatever the hell they call it. And I drive up there, and there's the car. I'm like, man, this can't be this easy. So I know the guy's wanted for murder, and I get my team. We go back and we see him. We see he's a day laborer, right? He's working construction. He's leaving his house about 5 a.m. So because of the fact that he's wanted for murder, he was wanted for a murder in Jalisco. I can't remember what year it happened. I got my notes here somewhere, but
that was your first guy that you picked up?
That was the first guy I got. He'd been living there for about 15 years in the U.S., undocumented. And he'd been stopped by the police on multiple occasions, driving without a license, speeding, whatever the case may be. And that's how I was able to hone it down. After I found his license, I found more information on him, right? And I created a pattern of life. I was pretty good at manhunting. And so I go out there. We get BORTAC. Now, BORTAC is our SWAT team, Border Tactical Unit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, love my BORTAC brothers. Unbelievable, 10-8, just the best I've worked with. And the plan was we're gonna follow him from his house. I knew he was going to a labor site in La Jolla. They were working on a house. And when he pulls up, the guy's here undocumented. I already knew. Me and the BORTAC guys, we walk up to him. And I said, hey, are you so-and-so? And he goes, yeah. And I go, hey, immigration officer, you have any documents to be in the United States illegally? And of course, this is all in Spanish. He looks at me like, no. All right, boom, click, click, get in the car. Let's go back to the station. That was it. It was literally that simple because he doesn't think we're there for the murder that he committed. He thinks we're there as immigration. And that arrest right there really helped dictate almost the rest of my career because I realized by utilizing these underused immigration laws on the criminal side, people let their guard down. All they think is, oh, it's Border Patrol. That's all they think. Oh, you're here just to arrest me because it's immigration related. Keeping the brown man down. No, mames, that's not what we're there for. But they don't know that, right? So we go arrest them. Their guard would drop significantly, get them back to the station. And at the time, we had something called a voluntary return. You could ask the guy, look, do you want to go see an immigration judge? Or would you like a VR? If you get a VR, if you agree to go back to Mexico, sign right here. I guarantee I'll have you back in an hour. And they'd be like, really? Well, yeah, I'll get you back into Mexico in an hour. Oh, boom, sign right here. Hey, Pejere, PGR, I'll meet you at Whiskey 2, which was the Cherno Brigade. The station was 5 minutes from there. We're driving back. And the Whiskey 2 gate doesn't exist anymore, but
that's right there at 700 East San Isidro Boulevard.
700 East San Isidro Boulevard, right? Used to walk, and it was this old, metal turnstile, right?
Yeah.
Probably get tetanus from all the shit on it. And right next to it was a gate. And the Mexican, the Inami guys, the Mexican side had their lock, and we had our lock on our side. So I'd open up the gate on my side. He'd open the gate on his side. The guy would ask him a few questions to determine he was Mexican. And then he would take him right there. He'd go handcuffed, into Mexico. And when you get into Mexico, the Mexican immigration guys, they had a little office off to the side. They would remove they'd put their handcuffs on, right? Remove mine, hand them back to me. And then we'd shake hands. PGR would take them, and they'd get them on an airplane and send them back to Mexico City or Jalisco or wherever they were wanted. And that was the case with the first murderer we got. And the very next day, Miguel calls me from PGR, and he goes, hey, bro, can you come down to my office? I'm like, yeah. So I go down there, and I meet up with Miguel and Mario, and they're like, hey, you think you could do this again? And I'm like, do what? And they're like, and they bring out this book. It looked like the old phone books, right? It was like 20, 30,000 names. And I look at them like, I'm one dude. I can't do this. No, I can't. So I took it back, and I'm looking through it, and everything from like fraud to, sexual assault, murder, everything in between. So I tried to divvy it up to as many people as I could, and we decided we're going to focus on the murders and the most egregious crimes. So what we did, or what I did initially before I got a team, it was just me. I'd recruit a few guys and showed a couple of guys how to do it. Those other guys that I talked about, Rich, and Jeff and Fernando, they moved on to bigger and better things. I think 2 of them went to HSI. Not sure what happened to Rich. I think he went to DC. Anyway, I don't think they were doing that anymore. So I kept plugging away. And at the time, we had a system called IDENT. It's our immigration database system. Mm-hmm. I'd go into IDENT, I'd put these alerts, boom, boom, boom. Hey, subject is wanted by Mexico for murder. If encountered, call Alex Pacheco at this phone number. And it was our generic 24-hour line. And put the alert in there. And sometimes they get caught for just immigration purposes. The agent, whatever part of the world or country was running them, would say, hey, they call me. Yeah, I got this guy. I'm like, cool. I coordinate with ICE. We'd have him transferred back to San Diego, and I would coordinate the turnover with initially primarily with PGR. But then as my liaison network started growing, I got to meet, my tocayo, the former chief of police in Tijuana. I worked very closely with Policía Estatal Preventiva, the Pepos, fantastic unit. They had this intelligence unit, and we started sharing a lot of information. And that's really how it got started. And I'm telling you, to all my law enforcement brothers out there, virtually every single guy we caught had been FI'd by one of you guys at some point. A vehicle stop, an FI, a simple encounter, whatever the case may be. Document the people you find, because even the most mundane stop could be something for somebody down the road. My experience working intel, I've been told by certain agencies that you might be the first, last, and only person to document this one piece of information. Write it down, because if you don't document it, it's not going to help anybody. But that's kind of how it got started. And
well, Alex, let's segue. This segues into this guy right here. Juan Diego Alcaraz Museño was a Tijuana municipal police officer that started working with the Arellano Felix organization, with Teo, before Teo went with the Sinaloa cartel. And before we get started with him, tell us the stories, how you caught this guy. You sent me a video of him, and we're going to show it just briefly. It's 7 minutes long. We're not going to show it, but this is when he was caught. This is when you brought him across the border. And we know that as soon as they cross the border, the cameras are waiting for him, and this is his interview right here.
¿Tu nombre completo?
Juan Diego Alcaraz Museño.
Your full name.
Yayo.
What's your nickname? Yayo.
¿Para qué cártel trabajas?
What cartel do you work for?
Trabajaba por los Arellanos.
I work for the Arellanos.
¿Cuál fue tu participación en el secuestro del empresario Super Chivas en Mexicali?
Did you participate in the kidnapping of the businessman in Mexicali?
¿Cuánto
Yes.
dinero?
How much did you charge?
$1,200,000.
¿Quién te mandó
$1.2
a
million.
recoger ese dinero?
Who asked you to pick up the money?
¿Quién era el R?
R. PR. He was our leader. We just knew him as R.
¿Quién organizó el secuestro del yonquero en Mexicali?
Who organized the kidnapping of the one of the gentlemen businessmen in Mexicali?
Iba my friend.
And he's mentioning my friend, Rumor, Steve, and Chino.
¿Qué le pasó a tu hermano?
What happened
¿Cómo le
to your
apodan?
brother? He disappeared. They kidnapped him.
El Cochi. ¿Por qué lo desaparecieron? ¿Qué función tenía
And
él?
then he goes on talking about it. 7 minutes. He's basically debriefed. Alex, share with us, who was this guy? How did you catch him?
So as I mentioned, I've been working a lot with PGR, and I got to know TJPD really well, obviously. Probably the best relationship I have throughout all of Mexico. And started meeting with a bunch of these different guys and realizing, man, there's a lot of information here, And I wasn't going through your traditional liaison units. I was building the relationships myself, finding out who I'm going to work with, who can I trust, right? Because, I may have met thousands of cops. I found 2 that I trust completely. Not that I don't trust a lot of the other guys, but 2 that are like my brothers. And so I started working a lot with the Pepos, and I had a great relationship with those guys, man. And their intel unit was fantastic. And
Can you tell our listeners who the Pepos are? What
Yes,
the
sorry,
real name is?
La Policía Estatal Preventiva. The PEP is the state police, and this was a state police for Baja California. I worked very closely with them. Used to go out to their offices at Mexicali a lot. They'd meet me in Tijuana. Now, at the time, I was an official liaison unit guy. I'd go on my days off. I'd meet them in TJ just because, I needed to meet with these guys. The information they gave me was unbelievable. I mean, we were getting stuff that even DEA and FBI were like, where the hell did you get this from? And I mean, like, I got my guy. I know a guy, right? And changing amazing information. I was really good at documenting and just flooding everybody that I was working with on it. So they're working this guy, and I think about 2008 or so is when he was initially indicted. They released a lot of TJ police officers from their posts at a point. I think they got rid of like half the department at one point. I can't remember what year it was, David. When they gave him the slingshots. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
So he was part of that initial firing, but he actually got back on. And so we're tracking him. We knew he had fled the United States. He'd been wanted for kidnapping and murder. And of course, cartel-related activities related to the Ariano Feliz cartel. He was living, we didn't know where he was living. We knew he was up in Los Angeles. We knew from social media that he had recently found a person he was living with, a woman, and that she had given birth. That's all we knew. That's all we knew. We didn't know where he was. Well, social media, and it wasn't me that found him. It was the Mexicans, the Pepos. They sent me a picture, and it's a picture, and it says the guy's name and the girl, and it says, and Dieguito, the little boy, his son. He named his son Juan Diego, just like him. And there's a picture of the lady holding the baby, and in the background, you see him like he's in the background, just like this, like walking past, right? Didn't know he was in the picture, and they sent it to me. They're like, he's got to be there. That's him. That's him. That's him. So I'm trying to find this guy. Now at this time, I'm no longer on Intel. I've been assigned. This was my last one. This was my first one. Was like March of 2005. That was Ornelas. Did a bunch in between. If it wasn't me, it was the Crim Squad and my team. Of course, it was doing it. And then in 2000, this was December of 2012. I'm up at San Clemente. I'm working as a supervisor, and I was really good friends with the second liner there, Rip and Gabriel, two guys that I love to death. And I got it, and I go, hey, I got a tip. I want to work with you guys. Let's do it together. So we go to the patrol agent in charge. He goes, yep, working with him, Pacheco. We drive up there that night, and this never happens. You guys, those of us that have done surveillance sucks, right? You go out there day after day after day after day, you don't see shit. Dude, we drove up to Huntington Park, Southgate. We drive up to Southgate, drive in front of the house, car pulls in, there goes Yale. He gets out and walks in the house. I'm like, it cannot be this easy. No way. So we drive over to the local PD, knock on the door and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I got. I got a guy wanted for murder and kidnapping. He's a former TJ police officer. He's been living here for 10 years. Can you help us out? So we went back the next day. It's like the next day or the day after. We set up surveillance. Another day, short, like within an hour, the guy's on the move. We get with Southgate. They do a wall stop for us. They call us in for translation services. We head over to the PD. We said, hey, we'll take the guy. Same thing. We drove him straight from there all the way back to San Clemente, hour drive or so.
Hey, Alex, was he illegal at the time?
Yeah. Every person that we arrested for a warrant was either 90% of them were here undocumented. There was one that was a resident alien, a green card holder. That's a story for a different day, which is a really good one. And then there was a couple who had B1, B2 visas, which are very easy to cancel, and we were able to cancel and remove those visas very easy. This guy was here completely undocumented, as was Ornelas and the vast majority of the guys. They were here illegally.
Hey, Alex, so now you catch them, you bring them. Did you do the same whiskey? You took them down to the border, then PGR got them?
No, this wasn't PGR. This was Pepos. This was
okay. Well, so they took them.
They took them, yeah.
And you do know that the Pepos now, they're on a show. I think they're called Gringo Hunters.
Yeah,
and,
I saw
yes,
that.
on Amazon, on Prime. Yes, so that's the team you worked with.
No, that was not the team.
Well, they're the Pepos. But
Yeah, well,
now it's a whole new group of guys.
It's a whole new group of guys. Yeah,
Yes.
it's the same team. You are correct, David. Not the same guys, I should say.
No, not the same guys. Yes. Yeah.
Not the same guys. But same thing. Take them down to Whiskey 2. And Whiskey 2 was cool, man. I wish it still existed. I wish you guys could have got down there with me, because it's like you have these big old Vietnam era landing mats. It's like these Jurassic Park fences, right? You got to drive through there. You park in this middle of no man's land, and you open up this squeaky gate, especially when you did it at night. It wasn't creepy. It was just cool, right? It was like really cinematic. It opened up, and we turned the guy over, and we had some questions because we knew what he was involved in. Now, the interesting about Yale was, this was, when was Cañaveral, David? 05, 06?
06.
So right around, look, for decades, the Arellano Feliz cartel was the cartel to be. They ran Tijuana with an iron fist. We won't get into the details because it's a whole different show, but right around 05, 06, Sinaloa and El Teo start taking over. There's this giant shootout called La Balacera en Cañaveral. It's a fruit place, which no longer exists. And a massive shootout between rival factions that were former AFO, and now some had become Sinaloa. And he was actually a part of this shootout. Not the shootout itself, but this is how involved this guy was. When you watch his video, they're asking him, hey, how many kidnappings were you involved with? Oh, like 3 or 4. And then they ask him, well, what about this one? And you see.
Well, I think we just lost him.
Yeah.
You know what? He'll come back on. Let me go ahead and remove myself. He'll come back on. He'll come back on shortly. Do this. Guys, what do you guys think so far, huh?
This is awesome. Awesome. Hey, that's a great question on the checkpoints too. Because the checkpoint over by, I think it's Alpine or close to that area, I go to San Diego all the time. It's always closed. Or it's unmanned. It's open now.
They're manned now.
Yeah,
Manned now.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alex. Let's go continue. You left off.
Where did I leave off? What was I talking about? Cañaveral?
Yes, you were just finishing. You just finished this big shooting.
Yeah, there was big shooting. So Yale's involved in a lot of stuff, right? You see in the video, they're asking about how many kidnappings have you been involved in. He's like, oh, like 3 or 4. And they ask him, what about this one? And he has this look. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. And what about this? Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. You're thinking, dude, how many kidnappings have you been involved in, right?
Yeah.
And they ask him, well, how many murders? He goes, oh, I wasn't involved in any.
Not me.
What about the police officer in Rosarito? Oh yeah, but I just kidnapped him. All right, I didn't kill him. I just kidnapped him because he stole money. All right, and then they ask him, what about the guy whose hands and penis were cut off? And he goes, well, that guy sexually assaulted the niece of my boss, and I just videotaped it. And the callousness of his acts were unbelievable when he talks about it. He talks about 4 or 5 kidnappings in Tijuana alone, 3 or 4 in Mexicali, his involvement in the murder of the police officer in Rosarito, the videotaping, and then he talks about his time with the Pozolero.
Yes, please tell everybody who the Pozolero was, for those that may not know who he was.
So the Pozolero, pozole is Mexican soup, right? And the Pozolero had a ranch, and he would dissolve bodies in caustic soda. He'd have these 55-gallon drums, and he had a special concoction that he would mix that would dissolve everything, down to the teeth, enamel. The bodies are completely dissolved in a big, massive goop. And he would dump them onto his hillside, and they found hundreds, maybe thousands of, not necessarily bodies, but clumps of human remains throughout his ranch. They're still finding it to this day. So he was assigned to an area called Ojo de Agua. He was like a sergeant. And he talks about like why he got involved. He said they kept coming to him, kept pressuring him. He's like, no, I don't need the money. I don't want this. He claims he actually reported it a couple of times. But there's no true mechanism of internal affairs for them to operate within. They have it in name, but it doesn't truly exist. For all the griping we do about internal affairs and having worked it for many years in the U.S., at least there's an avenue for reporting corruption within our ranks, right? And for the general public. It doesn't exist for them, for Mexico. It's a name, but my experience with it is not good. And And he ultimately gave in. He said, yeah, I'll do it. So he started working for him. And initially, before he got involved with this madness, he talks about it in the video. He said they would come to him 2 to 3 times a week with bodies and vehicles, right? And he was there for 3 to 4 months. It would pay him $300 to $400 a load. And his job was, I'm the boss, right? I'm in charge of the unit, and you guys are in my area OR. And I say, hey, guys, it's kind of slow on the east side of downtown National City. Why don't you guys move over to the west side? I'll take the east side. It was that simple. He would move all the units out of the area. He would tell the vehicle, follow me up to the Pozoleros Ranch. He would drive up to the ranch, drop off the bodies, and leave. And that's how he got started. That was his.
Hey, Alex, when I saw it, he said he would take 3 to 5 bodies a day.
Yeah, I think it was 3 to 5 bodies when he went, and it was like 2 to 3 times a week is what he averaged.
Yes. Yeah. When I saw that, I was going, my God, how many bodies was he taking up there to El Pozolero?
So the bodies, he said,
in uniform. He's in uniform in a patrol car.
In uniform,
yes.
in a patrol car. He's a sergeant.
Yeah.
2 to 3 bodies, sometimes 4 or 5. You know, for months. My estimate, I did the math, and I'm not that good at math, but it was like 40 to 50 times this guy was going up there.
Yeah.
So he made some money, but how many humans did you dissolve? How many people are never going to go accounted by for their families? Nobody's going to have closure because this guy was assisting these bad guys in dissolving these bodies in acid. And he's so callous about it. You know, he even talks about his brother, El Cochi, I think. Yes. And they asked him, and he says, no, pues lo desaparecieron. And what do you mean they disappeared him? He goes, yeah, well, he would help me. He was one of my lookouts, and the rivals found out who he was, and I don't know. I never saw him again.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think he kind of like squirted away in his own head that, hey, I didn't kill these guys. I'm just dropping off their bodies. At some point, it just became not a big deal.
I think he had to have, you know, he showed a little remorse towards the end of the video, because it seems like he stepped onto that slippery slope and there was no coming back.
Yeah.
But to make that decision to step onto that slope is a big jump. It's not like, you know, looking the other way for something small. He went in with both feet. You know, he's an evil guy at heart. You know, 60 years. He got the max sentence in Mexico. And that really solidified my relationship with the Pepos. After that, we did a bunch. They opened up their doors to me on anything I wanted, and it was a fantastic relationship over the years. I wish they existed more throughout the border. I mean, if the relationships that like David and I had with the Mexican police at the time we were working, if that existed everywhere across the border, it'd be a much more secure place, in my opinion, especially in the information sharing side. I mean, it's very valuable.
Hey, guys, you know what? Because of time, Doug, we're going to skip yours because that's another case that he's going to talk about. So let's go, Bobby, to number 3, to your question. And then we'll go to number 3, and then we'll be ending the show. But, Alex, you're definitely coming back. You're going to come back. Hopefully, we'll you're a very busy individual. But we'll definitely want you to come back to talk about the cases that you assisted my team and other teams with, and also the case that Doug was going to ask you about. Go ahead, Bobby. Question number 3.
Right before number 3, just real quick to our viewers, Tijuana is still a killing field.
Yes, it is.
Tijuana Metro, I think last year they had over 2,000, nearly 2,000 homicides. I think they were just short. And remember, they only solved maybe 5% or less.
I think that's being generous.
Yes, it's very generous. And that includes the poor, the carnicero, the taquero they pick up and claim he's responsible for 10 homicides. But he didn't do nothing with it. And so, it's still a killing field. The question we wanted to ask, can you give us a little bit about the experience of being an advisor on the Mayans motorcycle TV series?
That was fantastic. So my childhood friend, my best friend, best man at my wedding, Brian, he was he's a writer and Hollywood writer. He was working on this show. He was interviewing for it. He's asking me all these questions about organized crime, cartels, Mexican border, So I'm sharing all these stories with him. And he goes, hey, man, he goes, the showrunner, Algin, he kind of wants you to come down and meet with him and see if you can, give some pointers. So before a TV series starts, they will get all the writers together in the writer's room. And they will talk about, hey, season 1 is going to go from point A to point B. This is where we're going to start. This is where we're going to finish, and everywhere in between. So they would pitch me what the show was all about. Hey, this is what the show is going to be about. And then they would ask me, hey, would this really happen? If I was dealing with narcotics, what's the ranking within DEA? Who would take the narcotics if it's at the border? Would it be HSI? Would it be CBP? How would the officer carry his gun on his hip? Things that to the law enforcement community is simple. The writers, it's not their world. So I would help explain to them tactics and whatnot. And that was the first season. That's when they brought me on initially. They brought me back for 3 more seasons, and that's when I got a little more in depth. That's when I went to the showrunner and I said, look, I'll come here for the writer's room, and they would call me throughout the season as they're writing and bounce ideas off me. And they had their own technical advisor full time. I'm working full time as an agent. I can't be there all the time. A lot of email, a lot of calls. I'd go up there, once or twice throughout each season to meet with the writers, and we'd sit there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you a presentation. So like David's seen some of the presentations I give on Mexico and organized crime, and I would give a lighter version of that, if you will. I would talk about the desaparecidos and how some of these crews work and a variety of different things. And it was really an eye opener, and they would take those into consideration. I talked about the migrant kidnapping, intelligence, information sharing, all the different entities. It was a great experience. Look forward to doing it again, and it really opened up my eyes and connected me with some fantastic people in Hollywood.
And Doug, we'll finish it with you. Question number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have me. Hold on a second here. Okay. What are you doing today? What is your?
So I retired a couple of years ago, and I've been doing private security consulting, international training. Primarily, what I'm doing right now, I do a lot of training at the local casinos. So my previous experience, I had a lot of defensive tactics experience. So I teach defensive tactics at local casinos, verbal de-escalation, verbal judo, communication skills, things of that nature. It's been fantastic, man. I love it. It's been
I'm sorry, when you talk about international stuff, what kind of, can you expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so the company I'm working with right now, we ended up getting a contract. So at one point, I had a lot of connections in Guatemala, which I still do, and we were able to get a contract down there teaching an IFAC course. Okay. All right, yeah, and it was IFAC's fantastic. Individual first aid kits for individuals that don't know, they carry them in war zones. Tourniquets, wound packing, in case you get shot, how do you survive and stop this bleed? And in the U.S., every cop knows how to do this, right? Or most of us do. Outside of this country, it may not be the case. I'll give a brief example. We were hosting a course for Policía Federal, and we were doing the IFAC portion. And during one of the realistic scenarios, one of the Mexican guys runs out of the room. He's crying, like he was freaking out. So I walk up and I'm like, dude, what happened? And he says, this unit had a shootout about 3 months ago. We were engaged in gunfire for about 10 or 12 minutes, pinned down on the side of the road. We had multiple casualties. 2 of my good friends were wounded, limb wounds, arm, 1 leg. They both died at the scene. We didn't have IFACs. We didn't understand IFACs. We didn't know what the hell they were. If I'd had this training, if my government had shown me how to stop a bleed, my brother may have been here. So the importance of it is phenomenal. Thank goodness the U.S. law enforcement trains all our guys in how to do that. So that was one of the things we did down in Guatemala.
Hey, Alex, we have one last question from Ruben Nava. Is a retired Los Angeles Sheriff Detective Sergeant. He worked narcotics, worked gangs, and he started his career, I believe ended his career in East LA. Now he's a chaplain. He's a born-again Christian. He loves the Lord, and he's a chaplain representing the Catholic Church. This man is a great man. and he's working right now, like I said, volunteering in East LA and throughout the department. The guy's a legend. Ruben Nava is a legend. He's asking, how did you like working with my buddy Miguel Beltran on the Mayans?
Hey Ruben, I did not work with Miguel, so they had different advisors. I didn't deal directly with the actors. I was dealing with the writers, the showrunner with Elgin, and the writers in the writers' room. Victor, I think, was the primary technical advisor in the law enforcement side, and I believe the gentleman you're talking about was also the other technical advisor they had. But we had no dealings because that was production stuff. That's when they were filming and whatnot. I know the name, but I don't recall working with Beltran on the Mayans. My experience was with Elgin and the writers in the writers' room over at the I already forgot the city right there in Santa Clarita, the Santa Clarita studios.
Hey Alex, they never asked you to be to participate. I mean, you look like you could be a biker, bro. You could be one of the guys. Did they ever ask you to come out?
Now's the chance. You and I, David. We could advertise. If there's a new Mayans, we'd be great bad guys or just new Mayans.
Exactly. Yeah.
You could say we got deported, by the Border Patrol for crimes, and we came back. So
exactly. We'd have Doug. He'd be playing Joe Morgan, and we'd have Bobby. He'd be playing one of the Mayans.
I would play a great snitch.
Hey, Alex, you know what? Our worst enemy's upon us, brother. You're definitely coming back. If you're available, we'll talk later about your schedule. Thank you, mil gracias, for being on, brother. There's so much more. I mean, the things that you've done that I know. I've worked with you, and I've read your resume. We definitely want you to come back, brother. We'll get a hold of you. But with that said, Doug, any last words for Alex?
Hey, Alex. Hey, thanks for coming on. And I think next time I want to dive into a little bit of when you were talking about field interview reports, the FIs, and all that other stuff. Is like how important is access to the local intelligence databases for you guys?
For the feds.
I think it's understated, but I think it's so important that these counties and cities give you guys access to this stuff because the patrol guy is the one making all the contacts out there.
100%. Vice versa. We'll talk about that in the next show about information sharing and national intelligence, and tactical versus strategic, and all that. So that's kind of more my bag too. So.
Bobby, any last words? I know, Bobby, you've been holding your tongue, man, because you worked in Mexico. But when he comes back, you know what? We're going to be talking about his time in Mexico. We'll talk about Monterrey, but he also did a lot of time in Mexico. Bobby, any last words for Alex?
Can't wait to have you on again. And I absolutely agree with what Doug said about the FI cards. I was a detective doing, a lot of these long-term investigations. Those field cards, when you would find them, were gold. That could connect license plates with other players that you didn't know. And totally agree. But I can't wait to have you on again. Great content you provided for us.
Thanks for giving me the platform, guys. I really appreciate it. I had a good time. And the tequila from Emerald Spear was fantastic, and they do not sponsor me. I just liked it.
That's great. And before you leave us, Doug, tell us about the taste of your.
You know what? I finished it all. Well, I got one more swig, but I can't put. I'm kind of coming out on the end of a cold, but it's kind of fruity, and I can't. It's kind of berry. It's kind of fruity. Like I said, sweet, but it would be a really good whiskey if someone's like trying it for like the first time. And I think on rocks would be like a good. It'd be a good starting point for folks that want to get into it. So.
And like Jerónimo says, a toda madre. Bobby, go ahead, brother.
Next time you come on, maybe I'll be drinking, and I might have one of those beer bongs, so I'll be drinking beer.
Hey, Alex, thank you very much, brother. Be safe when you travel cross country, across the border. God bless you. Mil gracias de todo corazón.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks,
everyone.
Man, guys, what an episode, huh? And you know what? Like I said, man, time went by. Next time he comes in, we're just going to get started because he has so many great stories, things to talk about. Guys, before I forget, next week, I'm telling you, it is going to be on the Great Line. We got Rich Valdemar, who has, when you talk about an expert in the Mexican mafia, prison gangs, sexual assaults, child abuse, this is the man right here. That's a man that should write, books. But next week, he's going to be talking about the Maxon Street murders. Those were the murders that were committed there on Maxon Street. And he's going to be talking about those murders. The two gentlemen that were involved in those murders killed an infant at the house, and then they were later murdered. One of them was murdered at San Quentin State Prison by Ronnie Ayala, by the Mexican Mafia. He actually was a stabber, never got caught or convicted. He's going to be talking about that. And Doug, I know you're not going to be with us next Wednesday, but next Wednesday we have on Ash Wednesday, we got retired San Diego Police homicide detective Lori Adams. And Bobby, you're going to find this interesting. Her specialty, I mean, she's an expert on cold case investigations. And she's going to share with us some of the cold cases that she's worked. I mean, it is going to be an outstanding episode. Doug, thank you once again, brother, for getting her on our show. She is going to be outstanding. It's going to be a case.
She is also she was also in sex crimes when Leslie Albright was on, and she was talking about the Arevalos case. Lori was the case agent on that.
Oh, really? Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
We could basically touch a little bit on that too.
Yeah. So she's a sharp lady, a really good detective, and she's going to have some good stories for everybody.
Oh, I can't wait. You know what? She's probably going to be a two-show too. We'll talk about
absolutely.
the and then we're definitely bringing her back to talk about the Arevalos case. Arevalos case, those that don't remember, was a dirty cop with San Diego PD. He was a rapist, sexual predator, and he's out now. And I don't know if I told you guys, but after we aired that episode, we got several emails and also people texting us that he's currently working for UPS in Chula Vista. So they have their eyes on him. And it'll be great. But guys, with that said, time's against us. Doug, any last words? You're going to be leaving us for 2 months, brother. Any last word?
I'm going to be, for everybody out there, I'm going to be gone for two months. I'll be back in April, the 1st of April. I'm going to be taking some time with my wife, and we're going to do some pilgrimages. I'll be sending some photos to Bobby and to Dave and to the crew on the Gray Line, showing some of the cathedrals and churches and pathways that we're going to visit, and maybe they can share them with you at the end of the shows. But so I'll be out of pocket for a couple months. But yeah.
All right.
Amen. Bobby, any last words?
Nothing, just a great show, and looking forward to you guys. We have some great guests lined up here in the future, and we'll talk soon. Wishing you the best. Safe travels there, Doug.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, safe travels, Big Doug.
Yep.
We can't wait to see the pictures.
Yep, I'll be sending you pictures.
And with that said, like I always say, you know what? Live a purpose-driven life. Live every day like it's your last day on earth. Thank you. God bless you. And like Bobby told us, trust the process and trust the author. And our author is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Thank you. God bless you. We'll see you next Tuesday and Wednesday.
No hay método escrito, a mi modo he cometido errores, pero de ellos aprendí poquito, he aprendido a llorar en la vida y también a gozarla bonito. A mi modo he llevado la vida, así pienso seguir.